Okay, so we're back with part two here, and when I last left you, we were looking at the Great Green Wall, and so we've seen the most of these trees being planted around Senegal and other places in West Africa, and the Greenbelt movement isn't necessarily part of this, although the overall greening of Africa could be kind of lumped together. Do want to see where there is desertification, though, of course, and this is overgrazing of that livestock, and it kind of deals with or has to do with the carrying capacity, which we'll look at here in just a moment. But what we're going to see here with the harmattan is this. So I need to show you. It's a seasonal change in wind. Okay, that's what it means from this area. So if you look in June through September, that means it's summer in the northern hemisphere here, and the Sahara Desert is incredibly hot. So since it's hot, it's heating the air, and air is rising up into the atmosphere. So it's going to suck in this wind from across the Atlantic Ocean. And so what you'll see here is the rainfall come in. And so this is a really nice time. Everything turns nice and green. It's a monsoon over in this area if you check back on your maps for climate. And this is the good time of the year. So this intertropical convergence zone means you have the northeast trade winds and the southeast trade winds converging along that line. But this is where the rain's going to happen. So very little rain down here at this time. Then if we look at the winter time in the northern hemisphere being, well, summer in the southern, we see that rain is shifted here down into the southern part of Africa. But this is what happens in this area. The air masses are cooler, they're high pressure, they're descending out of the sky to the ground and then pushing outward. So this is going to cause those dust storms. So this is what it looks like, or can look like. So people have to deal with this during this period of time. And so this image right here, I hope you can make it out. Look at your map and find the country. It's landlocked, called Burkina Faso. And this is the outline of that country, with Ghana and others here. But do you notice this huge plume of sand and dust and soil that's being blown up? So this was caught on satellite imagery, and they just overlaid the boundaries. So this is very typical for this area, okay, for that time of year, those winter months. So it makes it kind of tough. And so if we look at food insecurity and things, obviously in these more remote and desert areas, high food insecurity obviously is going to be going on up in this area here. This is in Nigeria, heavily populated with people. Generally food secure in the green areas, but this thing can change with any given drought. And some of the things that we don't have to worry about here, like locust pests, things of this nature, because we can afford pesticides to put on our crops. Locusts will come through here and just lay waste to these poor people's crops. And what are they going to do about it? And the answer is they're not going to do anything about it except have a food crisis after that happens, if drought is the issue or whatever. So remember that we have lots of kind of stopgap measures in the developed world, from wells and irrigation, even insurance, that is, for farmers to be taken care of if some calamity befalls them. That's not what they have here. They are subject, oftentimes these farmers in Africa are subject to the whimsy of nature, and that's just how it is. And it makes it kind of tough. So when they are trying to make money and have a better lifestyle, having too many animals on the landscape, goats, sheep, cattle, these zebu cattle and others that you'd see, putting too many on the landscape is obviously very bad for the soil, can cause more dust storms, and in the end can make it much less secure, again, for food and food prices. Okay, so let's take a look then with just these items in mind at Google Earth here and take a look at a few things. So one, I'll take you up here and we'll take a look at Lake Chad, and we'll see that from the most recent satellite imagery, Lake Chad's more like a pond. It's a hint of what it used to be. It's a shell of its former self. If we look into, say, Senegal over here, we could see, if we knew exactly where to look, where some of the Great Green Wall have gone in. It would, of course, want probably be in this area around through here where we see the encroachment of the desert coming in. And so probably those bands of new trees will start to go in here, and hopefully they'll start to, hold back the encroaching desert. We would see, of course, lush landscapes here in Sierra Leone, Liberia. By the way, Liberia is a long lost stepbrother, if you will, of America. It's named such because of the African slaves that were freed, liberated, and went back here. And notice they named their capital after President Monroe. When we look at agriculture too, you'll see, for instance, in your textbook where the cocoa pods are, where they're farming and growing on the plantations chocolate. And so this is on a picture on page 190, but you'll tell here from Ivory Coast, this is the country that produces the most chocolate in the world. Here's Lake Volta. It's an artificial lake, just so you know. And so what I referred to earlier with Burkina Faso used to be called Upper Volta and Lower Volta. This is a time, if you look back to European involvement in these areas and the naming of such of these places. But you would have had this area would have been called the Gold Coast, the Ivory Coast, the Slave Coast, the Grain Coast. So you'd see a lot of the cities along through here associated with exporting of, again, slaves, ivory, gold, whatever. Let's look in here at the Congo itself. So the Congo is pretty thick out through here, okay? So, it's hard to get in and out of this place. So when you look at, say, a Congo, the country, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, notice that they actually have their capital cities just on either side of the river here, the Congo River. So Kinshasa, here's the capital of this country, where Brazzaville is for the Congo itself. And this has to do with how the Europeans dealt with this area anyway. So you have more development here and less development, of course, in a rainforest. It's very, very remote. Let's go on down here and take a look at the Namib Desert right here along the coast. It's just incredibly dry through here. It's just not raining at all. And if you look at some of the names, like Windhoek, this is a German naming, so the Germans named this city, which they founded here, and there's not a lot going on in this place. It's just really too environmentally limiting to see. Now look at the Okavango Delta, though. This is kind of cool. There's not a lot of rivers that empty into, if you take a look at, say, the Nile. Let me run up to the Nile real quick. So if we look at the Nile, up in this area, okay, we see the Nile Delta here, okay? So the Nile is flowing to the north. It's got this delta, that, three-sided delta from the Greek, the alphabet. But this is emptying into, a body of water called the Mediterranean. So that is a delta, but there are some rivers that have deltas, internal drainage, and the Okavango is one of those. And this is really cool. So it dumps out in here into this region of the Kalahari Desert. So if I highlight the desert, you see this kind of keeps it at bay. So this is the Kalahari getting lit up as you see me all over it. But these areas you can do stuff with, but it's mostly wildlife when you look out here. Okay, so this is the Great Escarpment right through here if you look back at your map. So an escarpment is a steep side, a hill, if you will, and goes precipitously down. And this thing right here in South Africa is called Table Mountain. If you were to look out here from Cape Town and go just to the east, and some of this, you'd find some really neat stuff. I don't know if you've ever been out to California, but if we looked at that region of California, it's Napa Valley and growing lots of grapes for wine and stuff. So if we looked here in Stellenbosch, that's exactly what you'll find. So all of this region right through here, every bit of this is vine growing. And so all of these are vineyards. So if we went in really close out here, and you could see how they have these vineyards, and they grow grapes yearly, and they make a lot of great wine out of it, but also strawberries and other things too. But that said, the region's quite complex with this Great Escarpment going through here in Table Mountain itself. If you go to Cape Town, everybody goes up on Table Mountain, and you'll see as the fogs come in and roll over it, they call it the tablecloth. Anyway, this area right out here is called the Great Karoo as well, so it's a desert region, and it's pretty impressive. So most of the development is on this line right through here. So this is called the Cape, and the wine route is the wine route's in this area, and then oh gosh, I'm losing my train of thought. This area right through here, we've been all the way out to Port Elizabeth, and you go out here to go whale watching and shark diving, and at Mosul Bay, and we took students out to see if I can find it real quick. It's called Hanspy. Hanspy is here somewhere, and we went out shark diving out in this area, and yeah, we saw lots of them too, and it's pretty impressive. Maybe it's right down in here. Sorry, I should have marked it if I was going to come and see it, but it's not a big place. But oh, there it is, right there, Hanspy. So you go out in this area and you see great whites, and they are impressive. All right, looking over here too. Let's see here. Here's the Drakensberg Mountains right in through this area. Then if we go into Vic Falls, we can see Vic Falls. Here, let me back out, make sure I'm in the right spot. So Victoria Falls, here's Livingston. This is over in Zambia, but this is in Zimbabwe. And so this is where we went into Victoria Falls. These are the falls, if you can see them right here. But this one right here, look this one up online. Look at the Kingdom Resort. It's a neat place we went. And I've never seen a picture of this that had more tourists like us than workers there. It's just not visited very often, but it's a beautiful place. There's gambling and all this stuff. And then right as you go outside of the buildings, they actually have a gate area around through here to make sure to keep you safe. So we were going to walk over to outside this area right in here and go over and see the falls, and they wouldn't let us out. And we were like, hey, you can't keep us in here. And they said, well, since we've got elephants walking around out here and they'll stomp you to death, maybe you ought to stay inside. I'm not kidding. So we had to wait for the elephants to move on before we could go over here and go traipsing about and then see this. This is a microclimate, just so you know, of a rainforest, and you walk all the way down this path here, and then you get to this huge bridge where monkeys are all over this bridge, but people bungee jump off of here. So explore this in Google Earth. It's a lot of fun. I'll take you up and show you a couple other things if I can get there quickly enough before my time runs out. My videos can only be about 15 minutes long. So that said, here's the Horn of Africa. Not a lot of development here in wild places. In fact, if you look outside of Mogadishu, that's about the only really developed and kind of safe and secure place in all of Somalia still today. And then you've got the Niles here. So if you looked into Sudan and found its capital, then you'd found at Khartoum here, you'd find the confluence of the two great white and blue Nile rivers. And so the blue's coming out of here, out of the Ethiopian highlands, which we mentioned. One of my favorite countries, Djibouti. You know why it's my favorite? Because it always gets a chuckle out of people. But this is it. So, I could have done more with your questions in class, but I don't have that. So go to Google Earth. You've got an assignment you're working on. Explore these places. Look them up. And I think you'll really enjoy the discovery and the freedom that you would have with it. All right, guys. If you have questions, remember, go to the discussion boards. I've left them open for you. I'll look there daily and try to answer everything I can. All right. Talk to you in the next one. Bye-bye.